The old grandfather clock ticked, each second a hammer blow on Alex's nerves. He sat alone, swallowed by the dim light of the living room. Shadows stretched from the corners, twisting into unsettling shapes. He felt it again, that prickling on the back of his neck, the certainty of being watched. He shifted in his seat, trying to shake off the feeling. He told himself it was just the old house settling, the wind rattling the windows. But deep down, a cold dread coiled in his gut. Something wasn't right. The shrill ring of his phone startled him. He jumped, heart pounding, before fumbling for the device. "Sarah?" he answered, his voice tight with relief. "Hey, babe," her voice, warm and familiar, flowed through the receiver. "Just wanted to let you know I'm running late." "Traffic's a nightmare." "No problem," Alex managed, trying to sound casual. He didn't want to worry her, just getting a little creeped out here alone. You know how this old house is. "Anyway," Sarah continued, oblivious to his growing unease, "I'll be home soon. Don't wait up for me." They said their goodbyes, and Alex hung up, the silence that descended feeling heavier than before. He tossed the phone onto the coffee table and tried to focus on the book in his hands, but the words swam before his eyes. Suddenly, a sharp, insistent sound sliced through the silence. The doorbell. Alex froze, his blood turning to ice. He hadn't heard a car, and besides, it was almost midnight. Who would be calling at this hour? He slowly rose from his chair, every creak of the floorboard sounding unnaturally loud in the stillness. He crept towards the front door, his hand hovering over the doorknob. He returned to the living room, his unease growing with every passing moment. The silence now felt thick and oppressive, broken only by the relentless ticking of the grandfather clock. He glanced at his watch. Almost 1 in the morning. Where was Sarah? He tried her number again, but it went straight to voicemail. As he lowered the phone, a flicker of movement at the end of the hallway caught his eye. He froze, his breath catching in his throat. There, just at the edge of the shadows, stood a figure. Tall and gaunt, it seemed to melt into the darkness, its features indistinct. Alex's heart hammered in his chest. Suddenly the lights flickered, plunging the room into momentary darkness. Alex cried out, stumbling back, his hand instinctively reaching for the lamp switch. The light flickered back on, casting long, dancing shadows across the walls. But the figure was gone. He stood there, panting, his heart threatening to burst out of his chest. The silence was deafening, broken only by the frantic pounding of his own blood in his ears. He strained his ears, listening for any sound, any indication of where the figure had gone. But there was nothing. Only an eerie stillness remained. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what he had just witnessed. He whirled around, his blood turning to ice. There, pinned to the wall where the figure had been standing, was a piece of paper. It hadn't been there before. He approached cautiously, his heart pounding in his chest. As he got closer, he could see that there was something written on it, scrawled in a shaky, almost illegible hand. He reached out, his fingers brushing against the rough paper. He could feel his pulse quickening, his breath coming in short, shallow gasps. He had a bad feeling about this, a sense of impending doom that settled over him like a shroud. With a trembling hand, he took the note from the wall and held it up to the light. The words, written in a dark, almost black ink, seemed to burn into his mind. "You let me in." He spun around, his heart leaping into his throat. Standing right behind him, mere inches away, was the figure. Its face, shrouded in darkness, was impossible to make out, but he could feel its cold, dead eyes boring into him. Alex stumbled back, tripping over his own feet, and landed hard on the floor. He scrambled away from the figure, his back pressed against the wall, his eyes wide with terror. He couldn't scream, couldn't even breathe. The figure took a step closer, its long skeletal fingers reaching for him. "No," Alex finally managed to choke out, his voice a strangled whisper. But the figure continued to advance, its movements slow and deliberate, like a predator stalking its prey. The doorbell rang again, long and shrill, echoing through the house like a scream.